Welcome to a new episode of Independent Artists Unite. This is a very special episode for me personally because I have Carlos here from Duke of Julian, my first Instagram friend.
Yes.
Thank you for still being my friend.
You have no idea how much I've been looking forward to this since you mentioned me doing this, and you're like a folk hero to me. So this is big.
Oh,
This is
really?
huge.
Wow.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Damn, how did I become a folk hero?
You're
I
just
have to
doing
retrace my steps.
you're so inspirational, really. No, you're doing it, and it's so inspiring. And I think the world needs more people like that. And I'm not just saying this right at the top. I'm saying it to make sure I remember to say it. But truly, you inspire me a lot and you inspire a lot of people, and it's really great.
Well, I feel the same way about you. I mean, when I first got on Instagram, I really had no idea, I mean, I didn't know what to put on there. So I and we I think hooked up on there pretty quickly, like over hashtag new wave or something that we were both
Yeah,
probably using incorrectly.
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
But it was it was so awesome. And then we yeah, because you were doing all this cool stuff where you were just like playing your guitar. And by the way, you're coming to us from Albuquerque, New Mexico. So we're going Copenhagen, Denmark to Albuquerque, New Mexico today, which is totally cool.
Yeah.
And then we ended up doing a couple of collaborations, which was totally awesome. We're like, hey, can I do this? Can we do this? We did it, and it was
Yeah,
really
yeah.
cool.
Isn't the modern world just fascinating? That's just possible, and that's amazing and incredible.
It really is because I mean I've talked with this with other people too, but it's just like back when I had bands, in the 90s and stuff, it was just like so difficult. The only way you could reach people was by doing gigs and trying to sign up, their email and everyone's drunk and writing like Carlos Gmail.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then afterwards you're trying to decipher it like, what the fuck? And then you just make it up as if at least it'll go to someone.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost a miracle rock music exists at all, to be honest with you. Just with alcohol and just drugs, the idea that we have music, it's just
Yeah,
good for them.
yeah.
Thank gosh.
And now you can do a post and maybe like, whatever, 5 people could follow you or sometimes more. And it's you didn't even have to lose money doing a gig.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's so much talk now about how expensive it is for especially independent artists to kind of front the bill on touring now, and even artists who are
Yeah,
signed have
yeah.
trouble touring and connecting like that. And so the internet, when it's used correctly, like I think how you use it, to connect with people and to show stuff that you've made and stuff like that, it's great, right? It's a
Yeah.
brave new world, and it's amazing.
Yeah, and you know, before we, you have a new single out, Realign, which I am totally psyched about because you've been involved in film projects. I know you're really
Mm.
into film as well, and you kind of music took a little bit of a back burner for the last couple of years for you, right?
Yeah, yeah, at least Duke of Julian, right? Because I write most of the music for everything we film, if
Oh,
not
okay,
all of it, which is a outlet, an
yeah,
outlet.
yeah, yeah,
But it's not quite putting a song together and putting because for me music is just so much more personal. I guess
mm,
it's because I can just be more in the moment
yeah,
with
yeah, yeah,
recording and writing and feeling, and because I've been doing it longer, been doing music most of my life. So it's just kind of like my fallback, which I think you could probably attest to as well, where it's like, this
mm,
is kind of how I interpret myself in these feelings I don't really understand. Film's not
yeah.
really like that for me. It's so much more cerebral and you have to plan everything. It's not as fun. So
Well, I mean, talk about how this song, like that you kind of could, because what I kind of witnessed, and by talking with you a little bit back and forth, I feel like you were trying to get back to music, and it was
Mhm.
like you had to kind of claw your way back
Oh my
after
goodness.
being gone for a while and carve out the time to actually get it done. So
Yeah.
what was the initial inspiration to do that, and like walk us through how you did that, because I think that's a lot of people can relate to leaving something where you're creative and then trying to make it back is not so easy.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for that process, by the way, listening to demos of this song. Not really demos, I guess versions, right?
Version,
In the
yeah, yeah,
modern digital recording age, you can make
yeah,
a version of something really quickly. So I really
exactly.
appreciate that. Thank you. That really helped me get over the line. Realign, this song I actually wrote probably 2 years ago. I've been just playing it on guitar just in my living room or an open mic if possible, COVID times, right? Um, so it's been on my mind for a very long time. And when I got back to music, I was actually working on a different song, which is much thicker, has much more going on, and I think is a lot more if that makes sense.
Mm.
And I found that too daunting to come back to and to try and finish. And
Okay.
I found it more, I found I was more enthusiastic about recording this new thing that I had written for a while ago and really liked. So let's see what could happen if I actually put together. And that enthusiasm, I think that was the important thing about getting back on the music course is finding that enthusiasm. And that's where I found it was doing something new, doing
Mhm.
something fresh, but something I really care about. I mean, wow, what a headline, right? You should do things you care about and you'll be enthusiastic. It's
Well,
interesting.
yeah, we need to tell ourselves these things. We get
Yes,
lost,
yeah.
we get lost.
I guess so, yeah. And I really do feel like it's one of my better recordings, right? And I don't think it's a mistake that it's also one of my most personal songs. So
Mm.
I think those things all go together.
And so, but you were so you wrote it on guitar, and it
Mhm.
sounds like the Les Paul to me. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, yeah. I was watching some older episodes of this, and you're talking guitars that you got for your son. I think a guitar that you got for your
Oh
son.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he
That's
got
an
a strap. Yeah,
exciting moment in a young
yeah.
guitar player's life.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I videoed the whole thing because I was like, what? Wait. Let me get it on video. This is the big moment.
That's
But
amazing.
yeah, it's crazy to watch him. I mean, and you probably heard me talk about it too with
Yep.
YouTube. With the tutorials. It's crazy. He knows more music theory than I do already. He's 11,
Yeah.
but I've never applied myself to theory. But he's just picking it up.
Hmm.
By these I mean, amazing guitarists on YouTube, amazing teachers. So it's really cool. But
Yeah.
you actually were playing Realign in open mics and stuff,
When I could. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
singing it and stuff too, or just playing
Yeah.
the. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so you had the whole thing. Yeah,
I
because
did. Yeah. Yeah. The whole song was put together a long time
okay,
ago. I
yeah,
just
I can
hammered.
picture that because it's really the guitar part. I mean, I suppose is it always that way with your songs, but the guitar is very front and center on this. It can
Mhm.
carry the whole song.
It can, yeah. And I really wanted that. I think developing as a producer of my own music, it's finding those one, two, or possibly three sort
Mm,
of kind of big tones at any given moment and focusing on those, making sure that those are coming through. And in this song, the guitar was basically in the top three through the whole
mm,
thing, right? And I
yeah.
actually learned that really thinking about what I like most about your music as well, which is, there's a couple of big aspects at any moment in one of your songs that I'm cueing into, right? And it's like, okay, well, let's find that as a North Star, right? And it takes that sort of inspiration to unlock that in your brain because you're
Mm,
smiling. Like I imagine you've heard this many times where it's like, yeah, there's only so much you can focus on in a song,
yeah.
so you might as
Yeah.
well make those good.
No,
But,
I'm smiling because someone was teasing me about the that I have a handful of like songwriting devices that I always return to. So I was laughing at myself. Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, back to the song. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the guitar. That's how it started, playing it like that. And I tried to retain that sort of songwriting. So I find myself getting into a very vertical rut with the digital workstations now, where I had a huge interest growing up in house music, and I think house music got really stuck in a vertical, right? And what I mean by that is there's a lot of beats that are great, right? But they don't turn them into great songs, you know? And at heart, I wanted Duke of Julian to be an artist who writes songs, which means let's retain the having a guitar in my hands and being a guitar player and working through something horizontally, right? As a real song.
Okay,
And so that was
interesting.
really important. And honestly, it's pretty simple. It's two big sort of harmonic sections that's all that's in the song. But it's enough, right? And I was really inspired by Alex Lifeson, which is a conversation I think we're gonna have because we've talked Alex Lifeson before. His kind of guitar playing kind of really inspired the guitar playing on the song. And just thinking about Rush songs, how he was playing at the best of his abilities. And you don't need to do something flashy, it just has to be true. And I think the guitar playing and the guitar part really reflects what I'm getting in the song. So I think it really worked.
Yeah, because too, I mean, it reminds me of Alex Lifeson too, because it's very rare that he just plays, like an open chord, like you learn it as a beginner or whatever. And the voicings that you pick are really interesting. Um, I mean, I imagine, are they almost like jazz voicings?
A little bit, yeah,
I
like
don't know
the
too technical for the guitar, but yeah.
yeah. for this I was trying to think more critically about the song and think about the playing in case this question came up about the guitar playing specifically. I
Yeah.
mean, one of the first songs I ever learned all the way straight through on guitar was Limelight by Rush.
Mm-hmm.
And the chords in the chorus of Limelight are basically the chords that make up the song completely,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Uh, and that's pretty intentional because Limelight is one of the things I've listened to the most. Moving Pictures, that album by Rush, all the
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
repeat throughout my entire life, and that's why the song I think feels so comfortable. Right? It's not a full blown cover of Limelight because I could never, but
No, no, no. I
it's
mean, I didn't hear
deeply
that at
inspired.
all. So, I mean, that's, yeah.
Yeah. And per voicings, it's because of the Alex Lifeson thing, where he will take what looks like a bar chord, but only the notes that are being actually pressed by fingertips, and just move that around the neck and let the B and the E string just ring out. Right. So you have to play in a certain key. But that's
Yeah.
something I learned watching him. I used to watch Rush concert videos just or DVDs all the time, right? And watching him play and picking that up like, oh, that's how he's doing that. He's not doing a weird thing where you're trying to voice things in a way. He's just moving his hand around. And that's why I do. In this song specifically, I detune my E string down to a D sharp.
Okay.
And that's a way I play on acoustic guitar a lot like
Yeah.
that. It restricts the kind of keys you can play in, but I think it gives it these voicings you're talking about where it's like, why is this D sharp? How are you playing a D sharp right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you detune the E string. And then you're like, oh, okay, then it's easy. This song's very easy. And that's how I do it. It's mostly I cheat. That's my short answer.
Hey, that's not cheating.
I steal and
I mean,
cheat like a
yeah.
good artist. I steal and cheat.
Well, it's funny that you should say that because I know Limelight so well too. I played it all through, you know, high school when it came out for me. But
Yeah.
um, because it's in like the Duke of Julian context, I didn't recognize that at all, actually. It sounds
Yes.
very
Yeah.
much like a Duke of Julian song. If you guys haven't checked out Duke of Julian, go check out his older material as well as Realign because it's I would say I was really impressed with how thoughtful you are about your songs. Like just the fact that you sent me a few different versions, and you really put a lot of thought into it. You're very much you know what I mean? Like it's like you're an artisan kind of, it reminds me of like like some like you're a craftsman, you're really like, you know, working with the thing and trying to come up with the best thing at the end. And I know sometimes I was like on your past stuff, and I know you're working and working and working. I'm like, dude, just put it out there.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
but the nature of the way that I was doing things, it was like zick, 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 boom, and I'm
Yeah.
done. But I really think that's cool. And but can you talk about the lyrics of Realign? You said it was really personal, and I could hear some of the lyrics, but I couldn't quite get the whole thing. Um, would you be comfortable reading the lyrics for us?
Oof. Uh, I don't think I ever wrote down the lyrics. This is
Oh,
one
you
of
don't?
those songs that
Okay, okay.
I played over and over and over, and it's this. It's not. I don't know if it constitutes a technique,
Hmm.
but it's vamping just over the chords, having the
Okay,
chords there. I know what they're going to do, and then just messing around with words that I like.
okay.
Because there's like 7 different ways I could sing the chorus, and I
Oh,
have sang the
interesting.
chorus right with different
Okay,
words.
yeah.
Um, because that's something I'm more interested in now is finding the words that feel most emotive, if
Oh,
that makes
yeah, yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah.
And I think that plays against when you say, I was trying to figure out the lyrics. And it's like, yeah, because the way I record my vocals is I have 2 tracks on either side and they're not the same, and I'm not trying to be the same. And often I will record different words that sound similar, but they're different in each channel. And they kind of come up with like this mush in the middle, which is
Oh,
part of who I
interesting.
am.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
hear me doing word salad right now, so it's
Oh,
fine. I
that's
think it
cool.
works.
I actually never noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's part of a deeper thinking I'm trying to do with my music, in that it needs to be a reproduction of who I am, right? And um, what I'm trying to be, because music is always me coming to grips with who I am, is
Mm,
what
mm,
I always
mm.
say. Um, and not having all the right words all the right time is
Mm.
definitely something I am. So
Yeah,
I
that's
found this
interesting.
method of porting it like that to try and convey that.
Yeah.
That does not answer your lyric question at all, but I think
Well,
it's
let
insightful
me
that you
tell me
can't.
if I'm right at that, because it seems to me like it's the thing of like what I'm hearing is well, I guess my interpretation of it is that you're you're trying, I suppose, since I know a little bit about you trying to get back to songwriting, I'm thinking about you realigning
Hmm.
to your creative self, which is I think is like our true selves. And
Yeah.
and when you try, then there's a line in there, but every time you try, you find you don't have the time or something. I heard in there. um
Hmm.
and yeah, is that a general
Absolutely.
thing?
A
Yeah.
thousand percent correct. And I'm so pleased you got that. Yeah. Trying to write oneself like in a spiritual way, right?
Mm,
Trying to right the ship uh, with what you're doing emotionally in your life, and feeling that that takes a certain amount of time and energy and patience with
mm,
yourself. And that's a pretty frustrating feeling, I think, especially when you're trying to get music out there and get it heard and connect like that. And you feel that time is of the essence. And but to take care of yourself, I think requires a lot of time and patience and effort. I mean, would you agree? I know you've had some physical health scares, so that's
yeah,
mandatory, right?
yeah, I mean, totally. Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of scares. But yeah, I find that to be true. I mean, that this is, I mean, really, I suppose at this stage of my life, I really feel like that's what life's about. I mean, that's what I've come to, that it's about, you know, um, evolving,
Yeah.
and it's about this path of where we're going to, as our soul evolves, and the experience. I mean, that to me, that's the main thing, and experiences kind of like come and go, and your perceptions of them totally change depending on where you are, spiritually and mentally. So it's
Yeah, yeah, it's like standing in a river for a very long time. The world around you is going to be changing. There's going to be things flowing by you. Um, you're in the same place, but it almost feels like you're in an absolutely foreign place, right? And that's a feeling I try to be cognizant of, right,
Mm.
in my day to day. Taking stride now. Now that I'm older, you know, I was like 22. It's like, oh God, I have to be everything as soon as possible. And now I think it's much more valuable to think about being as much as possible as much of the time, if that makes sense, right? To try and be
Yeah.
present as much as possible.
Well, I applaud you for thinking of these things at such a young age because I mean, if you were you 22 when we first kind of met online, or a bit older than
No, no, no.
or
I was
25?
older. Yeah, yeah, about, yeah.
You know,
So I'm
25. Yeah.
28
Well,
now.
still, yeah, yeah, still not that. I mean,
Oh,
very young
thank you.
compared to me. But I mean, I applaud you for. I think it's wild that you're thinking about these things at 22
Mhm.
because or 25 because I was not capable of that. I feel like I might, just have something to say now, at
Yeah,
57.
yeah.
So I just didn't have that, I mean, I went back to
Mhm.
school too, in Denmark here, and I go to school with a lot of people your age. I'm taking a master's degree, and I'm just like, how do these people know what they want to do already with their lives? They're so serious. They're such good students. I was just getting wasted and being a total ass. That was all I had. Had
Yeah,
two
yeah.
speeds: wasted and ass. That was it.
That's
So
great. That's
I'm very impressed by
thank you. Thank you. Of
by
course.
you people. Oh yeah, yeah. Um, let's talk a little bit about your vocals because
Sure.
I love your vocals, and
Oh,
I
thank
know from talking to you that it's not the most confident thing in your bag of tricks. Um, I know you're more comfortable as a guitar player, but your vocal is so distinctive and it's so recognizable. And I'm wondering about like some of the influences because I also hear there's a certain thing you do that's in Realign that I've heard in other songs where it's like I can't even do it. I don't think I'll try to do it, and I apologize for a bad imitation, but it's like this no no, those little color
those little turns.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. But it almost sounds like an Indian a little Indian flourish or something in the middle of basically a pop song. So I was very interested where that might have come from, or were you just experimenting? Or
Definitely experimenting. I think in Realign that turn um, was interesting part of the writing process because it indicated a different key than I thought we were in, right? And I kept
um,
singing a note that would not have been in the key, right? Trying to figure out and try and nail the notes just on guitar, play it back, and think, well, that's not what I want to sing, right? What I
okay.
am singing is this. Found something else out, and that I like to think of it as kind of like a pirouette, that
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
not
yeah.
gonna. It has to be fast because I don't have the vocal capability to make it slow. Um, it has to be fast. I don't think it particularly needs to be accurate. I think what you said about it kind of has an Indian feel to it is because I am not singing perfectly in tune with myself over and over, which means there's these little microtones in between the takes that I use, which
Hmm.
I have found, and it's so nice of you to say that, but I have found as part of my style, right? As part of
Mm-mm.
my sort of production style of my
Mm.
own voice,
Yeah.
right? Because, like you said, I am, pretty shy about my voice. I think it's gotten better over my recordings over the years, but um, so the vocal style, I should ask you because you're a much better vocalist than me, right? Like, did you grow up listening to vocalists and try to replicate vocalists note for note, timbre for timbre, tone for tone?
Um, yeah, I pretty much did. I mean, the first one was Elvis Presley, actually. I mean,
Oh, okay, I
showing
hear
my
that.
age there. When I was, when I was just like 6 or 7 years old, that was my first real idol was Elvis Presley. So I really, did impersonations of him, for anyone that would listen at family gatherings. And and I love the way he moved and everything too, because I did all that as a little kid, because it's like sadly I was really in need of applause as a small child.
It's a way to put it.
Never comes from a good place.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Elvis, and then I have to say, also in there too, unbelievably. Now this may ruin my vocals for you forever, but
Oh no.
David Cassidy, because I grew up watching The Partridge Family.
Oh,
So
sure.
so I also had a David Cassidy impersonation that I did, and so that was big there in the beginning, and then the first rock album I ever bought with my money was actually Permanent Waves, was Rush. And I had a very high voice as a kid. So I actually
Yeah.
could sing all the Geddy Lee parts. And so
Yeah.
I would actually like impress girls by singing them,
Wow.
Geddy Lee, over the phone,
Was that successful? Rush covers for girls?
No. It impressed them, but did not have the effect I was going for. Um,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
course, there's the David Bowie years, because
I
everybody
hear that a
hears
ton.
David
Yeah.
Bowie in my voice, and I very much loved how he sang, and I did um, sing like him over and over and over again, and try to imitate him. But when I started in bands, then I did try to find my own style, and then I became quite influenced by Chris Cornell actually, because I realized I could do that kind of screaming thing too. So I actually did that in a few of my early bands in New York City, um, in the grunge years. But that was also very hard. Of course,
Mhm.
that's very hard on the voice. Um, and then like this version now, I'm kind of just, I mean, when I was writing these songs that, you were hearing and stuff, I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to worry about how and I think this was part of having this heart attack, that I had too. After that,
Yeah.
I was like, I don't give a fuck. I'm just going
Yeah.
to sing how I sing. Maybe I sound like David Bowie. Maybe I sound like, Depeche Mode. I don't know. I'm just going to do what I love and what's coming to me naturally, and fuck, the rest.
Yeah.
Because um, yeah, because I've had a lot of people say the David Bowie thing, and oh, you think that hurts you in your career that you sound so much like David Bowie. Who knows? I don't know. But
Yeah, well, I love your voice. I hear David Bowie. I hear Dave
yeah,
Gahan. I
yeah,
hear a
yeah.
little Chris Cornell and stuff like that. I only ask because I didn't. I didn't grow up replicating vocalists. I grew up
Yeah.
replicating guitar players,
Oh,
clearly.
interesting. Okay, yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
think I
yeah.
think maybe you're better off that way. It's interesting, because I've talked, on this show now to a lot of singers that, and I really find the singers that don't consider themselves singers, are actually my favorite singers, because it's so distinctive, you know what I mean? It's like you can hear that you just find your way, and maybe even those trills and stuff, maybe that's an influence of the guitar as well, singing lines like that. And I'm coming from a totally uh different thing, and went through, also singing, I don't know if I ever told you, went through classical singing training too, as a operatic tenor. So I had that training as well. And I don't know, to me, it's boring if someone's too technically good of a singer. I'd much rather
Mhm.
hear someone that has a very distinct style that's instantly recognizable. Those are the coolest, voices to me. So it's interesting.
Oh, 1,000%. As somebody who loves film, cinema, and somebody who loves music, all the time people are like, "Oh, so you love musicals?" And I really don't. And it has nothing to do with the singers as people, but it's
Yeah,
exactly what you said. I don't connect to that kind of voice. I mean, one of my favorite band, well, my favorite band is Rush, right? And I think everybody would agree Getty has a certain voice. And then my favorite band of my adulthood easily has been New Order, and that's a huge influence on my vocals. Where it's like it's this because I had never heard music like that for some reason. Nobody showed me New Order. They just were not a band that people were showing kids, I
yeah,
guess,
yeah,
at
yeah, yeah, yeah.
my age. And I loved house music,
Hmm.
but I played guitar and I loved rock music and stuff like that. I was like, man, it'd be cool if people combine this. And they're like, there's like a whole movement of music in the 80s that I think you would really like. And then I
Oh,
heard
wow,
his
interesting.
voice on
Yeah,
New Order songs, and I'm like, man, this guy has almost a punk thing to him, right? Bernard Sumner, in a way, right? Where it's like, it's not about being the best vocalist, it's about being the truest to yourself. And
yeah,
that's the best influence,
yeah,
I think.
exactly. Yeah. And of course, I mean, if there was really, like a classically trained singer singing these New Order songs, it would be a totally different thing. It's like you hear his voice and you're like, ah, that's me, and thinking my worst
Exactly.
thoughts.
Exactly. And I know we're close to time here, but there was a great documentary, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago or something called
Mm,
like 8 Feet to Stardom or something. It
mm,
was about basically, if I remember correctly, why are backup singers for big band? Like I think Bruce Springsteen was front and
mm,
center here
mm,
because
mm.
Bruce has a very recognizable voice and he has his voice and he writes music for him. That's why he's an amazing artist, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But why are his backup singers so much better vocalists than he are? And
Mm,
they're not the big stars on stage, right? They're the backup singers. And it just hit on this idea that artistry is different than technical virtuosity, right?
mm.
And there's many aspects to connecting with people. That's not just virtuosity. Trust me, I'm a guitar player because there's whole guitarists who have made careers who are like, it's cool playing fast. Like 8 people think that's cool, but if you can sell it to those 8 people, you're solid, man. Great work. So I
Yeah.
get it.
You know, I was I've been thinking about this with your music, and I forgot if I ever asked you. Did you ever listen to Sunny Day Real Estate?
No, no.
I'll have to send you some of that because
Yep.
also your stuff reminds me of that too. They were like coming up at the same time as Nirvana and stuff.
Sure.
They may have even been on Sub Pop. I can't remember. But it was one of these great stories because the singer just lost his mind. I think he was a shut-in, for some ridiculous amount of time, like right when the band was going to go somewhere. He did a
Yeah.
total Sid Barrett, and he just was a
Oh,
shut-in, and he had all these mental health problems. But it's really like he's like reminds me a lot of Geddy Lee, and the guitar playing
mhm.
reminds me a lot of what you do. But I have to remember to send that over to you.
Absolutely.
Well, talk about just a little bit more, because talk about your love
Right.
of film and what you're doing with film. Because also I think your love of film, that cinematic quality,
Mm,
goes into your music as well. Because in the past, I know you go through these themed um,
yeah.
kind of song cycles. Um, so yeah, talk a bit about that.
Well, I live in Albuquerque, which is a film hub, which is kind of strange, right? Post Breaking Bad, I guess we
Oh,
got even more
interesting.
movies,
Okay.
television. I just yesterday I walked out of my apartment building, which is in downtown, and in the alleyway back there was somebody shooting something. I don't know, some sort of
Oh,
short
wow.
film or
Okay.
something, right? Because the strikes are going on, so there's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the town slowed down a lot in
Mm,
terms of big productions. Um, but it means that we have a ton of filmmakers here in this city, a bunch of filmmakers who are very industry adjacent as well, right? They work on Netflix shows. Netflix has a studio presence here.
mm,
Um, so there's a lot of technical expertise going around. There's a lot of actors, and it's just the storytelling community that's really amazing. And
mm.
how it impacts my music, I think, though, is there are some reverberations, right? The prog albums I listened to as a kid, right? Like
Mm,
Hemispheres, or like I was a huge Pink Floyd fan, right? And Pink Floyd was in a lot of ways even bigger in terms of this kind of storytelling prog album thing for me with film. And
mm.
then my music, I think you were mentioning that I started a song cycle. I really should finish it. And it was totally inspired by that, right? Telling a story
Okay.
over a long term thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's what was daunting, though. Getting back to that earlier question, it's like, hey, getting back to music, and it's like, okay, well, I need to detach from that for a moment. Do this song that has nothing to do with that I think is really interesting, right? And that'll help me get back on the horse. And it's the same thing you hear with film, right? Where somebody's writing something for years, and they're like, look, I just need to make a short film about something I care about, and that'll spur the the gears to get going again, right?
Mm.
And so, like I said earlier too, film. Everybody who's worked on a film set, as in little shoots, with me knows that I complain the entire time. And I'm like, it's so much cooler playing guitar. You know what's so much cooler? Just like playing music. I don't know if you guys know this. You should stop doing this and you should start a band because it's actually a lot more fun. And that's that. I'm so enthusiastic to get back into music because I'm like sick. No more production meetings. I'm just like, we're doing 2 drum tracks on the new single, and nobody is going to be like, why? Well, what's the technical thing? And I'm like, I don't care. I think it sounds cool. That's why we're doing it. That's why I'm glad to be back in the music world. It's like, just feel it. Just don't ask questions. Feel it.
And I mean, with your I'm just wondering what are some of your favorite filmmakers? I mean, I think I know one because there was some themes, some names that showed up from his films and some musical themes that showed up that were part of things he did.
Yeah, I totally named it after a character from a TV show he did that was pretty famous. If we're on
Yeah, we're
the
on the
same
same
wavelength.
page. Yeah, David Lynch. Yeah.
Okay, yes. David Lynch is a huge inspiration for me. He's just you know what I love the most about David Lynch. I think you'll appreciate this too. Is the idea that he's one of these artists where you either connect or you don't. And
Mm,
I think that's the art most worthy of really paying attention to is the art that's that binary, right? Where
mm,
people are either like, dude, Twin Peaks is sick. Or it's the opposite where people are like my parents are like, Twin Peaks is incomprehensible and I'm not going to sit through this, right? And I'm like, yes, let's do that. Let's make music where people are like, this isn't for me. Or, I love everything about this. And that's what I try and do. And that's what
yeah.
he's inspired me to do, right? Is to be like that as a musician, at least, right?
Well,
You're a David Lynch fan. You're a Twin
oh
Peaks
yeah,
fan. You
yeah.
got the Audrey
Oh,
reference. Yeah.
totally, totally. So I'm a huge David Lynch fan because I mean I've seen interviews with him, which I love his whole take on filmmaking because he says, you know, like why, he talks about dreams, like we all wake up, like what they don't make any sense at all. Why do my films need to make sense? And that makes sense because it's like what if you think about what really sticks with you in life, it's never like and the boy met the girl and at the end and I mean
Mm-hmm.
people want this like they hold on so tight to this story arc, but really like dreams, visions, all
Mm-hmm.
these experiences that are more abstract and
Yes.
symbolic, mean much more to us, and that's what he captures. So that's why I love it so much because I think you feel it much more deeply than a more you know straightforward narrative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And I'm in a real space right now where I'm not viewing movies as completely literal, if that makes sense, right? Like there has
Mm,
been a dumbing down of viewing just all media, not just movies,
yeah.
of everything is literal. And I think,
Hmm.
it has a lot to do with marketing, right? Especially in music,
Yeah.
you know this,
Yeah.
where stories need songs a lot of the time to be shared to sell them, right? Where it's like, oh, this song is about my famous ex, right? Not calling
Mm,
out
mm,
a
mm.
young songwriter who's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
famous. But it all feels like marketing. And songs, I
Mm,
don't think need to be literal as well, like you're talking about with Dream Theory, especially now that the technology and the samples are so good. I mean,
mm,
I hate to say that, but just the raw sounds that you can create are so high quality
mm,
so
mm.
easily that
Yeah.
I think we need to push ourselves to be less literal about
Mm,
some stuff, especially like somebody like who plays guitar on all their records, where it's like sometimes you can replicate things so easily that you should because it'll inspire you in new ways. And I think that's kind of what David Lynch gets at too, which is
mm. Yeah.
thinking about bugs in a certain way can make you reimagine mountains or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. 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 It's cool. I
yeah,
also just saw
yeah.
a little clip of him. It said, the interviewer's like, "What do you think about? There's a lot of product placement in films nowadays. What are your views on that?" Well, shit.
Nothing will top his weather reports for me, right? His YouTube channel is just like, it's today's day is blah blah blah, and it's sunny. Oh man, thanks, thank you. I needed to know what the weather in LA was. I imagined it was sunny.
So one final thing, what's next for Duke of Julian? You're back on the saddle. You're back in the saddle. You got the single out.
Ooh. I keep I have 2 or 3 versions, as you've heard on my SoundCloud, that are private. I just keep in my ears, keep on my drives if I have to go to the grocery store or something, right? And just queue up a version. Think about it. Become more internalized with what I want to do with it. And I have 2 or 3 of those right now where it's like, okay, so that's next. The same way Realign was one of those.
Oh, nice.
Like,
I'm so excited that you got more in the queue.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
You know how it is. It's like a well that never stops. Like,
yeah, I know, but your fans have been clamoring for material here for a couple of years. Every once in a while, I send you a message. Come on, man.
I really deeply appreciate that. You have no idea how much you inspire me. When you ask about filmmakers, I'll say, also Steven Soderbergh, who's doing like 2 or 3 projects a year. I watched his web series, which was filmed very cheaply. I thought it was amazing. And you're similar, where it's like, what's great? Doing stuff, appreciating stuff, being enthusiastic. You should do that. And I'm like, that's what Scott's taught me, is life is better when you do stuff, you connect, you just try your best to live your life, right? So thank you again. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you for all your support throughout the years, and I'm so glad it's so wonderful to actually be face to face like this. Yeah, very, very cool.
Yeah.
And let come on again when you got your next tune in a version that passes your muster.
Please, because I got like 10,000 questions for you, so this could have gone on.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I'll stop. I'll hit stop, and then we'll talk more. Thanks so much, man.